and whiskers on kittens, bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens, brown paper packages tied up with strings. These are a few of my favorite things.
I work in that building. Naturally, if I work in that building, yes, sir. Back up, man. Come on, man. No, they're taking me in because of the fact that I live in the building. I'm just a patsy. President.
Now, Mr. Frazier, was there one time that Mr. Oswald asked you to drive him back to Irving that was not on a Friday?
Yes, sir, he did.
Was that on November the 21st, 1963, a Thursday?
Yes, sir.
The day before President Kennedy was assassinated?
Yes, sir. And I said, well, why do you want to go home with me tonight? And he told me that he was going home to get some curtain rods for his apartment from Miss Payne. As I was getting in the car, I noticed a package on the back seat.
Did you ask him what it was, and if so, what did he say?
Yes, sir, I did ask him, and he says, you know, that's the curtain rods that I was going to pick up from Miss Payne.
Mr. Frazier, I understand you watched the presidential motorcade from outside the front door of the book depository building. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you heard the rifle shots?
Yes, sir.
How many did you hear?
3.
Were all employees present at the time of the roll call, or was anyone missing?
Everyone was present except Mr. Oswald.
He was the only employee who was missing, is that correct?
That's correct.
This is Bonnie Ray Williams, and that is myself, Harold Norman.
So you were in the southeasternmost window of the 5th floor of the book depository building?
Yes, sir.
And then eventually the presidential motorcade passed by, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So you heard a total of 3 shots?
Yes, sir.
Did it sound to you like a rifle was being fired directly above you?
Yes, sir. I could hear the bolt action of the rifle being pushed back and forward.
You're familiar with a bolt action rifle?
Yes,
now,
sir.
by balls you mean cartridge cases?
Cartridge.
How many did you hear falling to the floor?
3.
Did you form any opinion as to the location from which the 3 shots you heard came?
I told the officers that it came from one of the 2 buildings, one of which was the school book depository, the other one over that corner, one of the 2.
You feel very confident about that?
Yes, sir, I do.
In other words, you feel the shots, you believe the shots came from behind the president, is that correct?
Absolutely.
I was standing on the front porch of our office, and when I heard what sounded like 5 pistol shots.
Okay, how was he carrying the pistol?
He was carrying it in a raised pistol position,
Would you demonstrate that for the jury?
like this.
Looking at Lee Harvey Oswald, is he or is he not the man that you saw that day?
That's the man, yes, sir.
Any question in your mind about that, sir?
None whatsoever.
Okay, you may sit down here. Thank you.
Yes, sir. He folded his hands like this. He put them in through the window, up on the window, and he leaned over like this. Shot him in the wink of your eye. Just bang, bang, bang. And then he see me. And then he done like this. And of course I did too. And then I slapped my hands upon my face. But I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. What would I do?
The man that was standing in front of your store on the occasion in question.
Yes, that is.
Okay, could you describe his physical appearance?
Well, his hair was somewhat messed up. He looked as though he had been running. He looked scared.
Okay, did you feel there was anything suspicious about him apart from his physical appearance?
Well, the fact that he was standing and facing me with his back to the street while all of the commotion was going on outside, I thought that quite unusual. As the policeman walked into the aisle that Oswald was sitting in, Oswald stood up. He hollered something. I'm not sure what he hollered. And he struck the officer, knocking him backwards. As he had done this, he reached under his shirt and pulled out a revolver. And he stood back up and grabbed at the revolver. There was quite a scuffle there for a few moments. And he was handcuffed and led away.
Were you one of 20 experts chosen from around the country to sit on a panel to look at the photographic evidence?
Yes, sir, I was.
From your examination of the Zapruder film and frames, how many times did your panel conclude that President Kennedy was shot?
Twice.
What about Governor Connally?
Governor Connally was shot one time.
Did your panel conclude that any other bullets were fired at the time of the assassination?
Yes.
One more bullet?
Yes.
Was this a bullet that apparently missed both the President and Governor Connally?
That's correct.
Was this the first shot?
Yes. This is one of the Zapruder films, and this is actually before the President was shot. As a matter of fact, you can see him here quite clearly. His arm is resting on the side of the vehicle, waving. My attention is drawn to this little girl right here. She's actually running parallel to the presidential limousine. You can see already that she's looking back over her right shoulder at something. The most important event in her life, she's taking her head, her vision away from the President. Next slide, please. You can see now that the President is continuing on down the street, and the little girl is standing completely still with her hands beside her, and she's looking back up towards the school book depository. To orientate you, this area right here is the cuff of his sleeve. Can we have next frame, please? All right. Now you see that the President's arm here is super extended. We interpreted this to be a stimulus. This happened an 18th of a second.
So that's the President physically reacting to being hit for the first time. Is that correct?
That's correct. This is the headshot at 3:13. This mass that we see here is what the medical people call particulate matter, but us lay people will call brain tissue, blood, and other items that's being emitted from the President's head.
Did your panel prepare a high contrast photo of that frame 313?
Yes, sir, we did.
Can we put that on the screen?
You can see that the particulate matter is going forward of the President, coming in this direction. You can see the cone here of mass that's going in a forward direction. And of course, this is the body, the torso of the President at 312. 313, please. We concluded that there is a definite space opening there between the seat and the President at 313, moving forward. 314, please. 314, the space is larger.
So he's moving forward.
He's moving.
313 and 314.
Yes.
Mr. Kirk, this appears to be a photograph of Oswald holding a rifle.
And a lot of the critics interpreted this line as being signs of a montage. Next slide up, please. But when we look at the first generation photograph, in other words, a photograph made off of the negative that was recovered by the Warren Commission, we see that line is not there. But as you copy photographs and increase contrast, anytime you have a shadow, it creates the illusion of being a line.
And what was the conclusion your panel came to as to how many bullets struck the president, their point of entry, and the path they took through the president's body?
My conclusion and the conclusion of the panel was that the president was struck by 2 bullets, one entering the right upper back and exiting in the front of the neck, the other entering the right back of the head and exiting in the what we call the right frontal area, that is the front and side of the head.
Is there any doubt in your mind, doctor, whatsoever, that both bullets that struck the president came from the rear and no bullet struck him from the front?
None whatsoever. This is a diagram of the skull showing the point of entrance in the back of the president's head and the exit in the right frontal area.
Doctors, I'm sure you're well aware one of the principal contention of the critics is that President Kennedy's head snap to the rear around frames 315 to 320 on the Zapruder film means, in the eyes of the critics, some of them, that he must have been struck by a bullet from the front. You're aware of that contention?
Yes, I am.
What conclusion did your panel come to with respect to this head snap to the rear?
The head snap to the rear, in the view of the panel, was that this was an automatic, involuntary reaction on the part of the president's nerves and muscles. There was a blast inside the head, the nerves were fired off, and the muscles were set into action. The muscles in the back are stronger than the muscles in the front, and so therefore the head moved backward. The panel concluded that the governor was struck in the back, that the bullet circled around the outside of the chest, exited beneath the right nipple, went on to continue through his wrist, and then on into his thigh. The right wrist, the left thigh.
Could this bullet have ended up in this relatively pristine condition if it had entered the president's back, exited his throat, then entered Governor Connolly's back near his right armpit, and taken the path through Governor Connolly's body you have just described?
Yes.
Would you explain to the jury how you arrive at this conclusion?
This bullet is a full metal jacket military bullet designed to pass through the soft tissues of an individual, exactly as it did in President Kennedy's instance. It then contacted bone only in 2 areas. First, the rib in Connolly, and second, the wrist bone in Connolly. In neither instance did it penetrate the rib or the wrist bone. It easily travels through such soft tissues as that without great deformity.
Did you look at a photograph of 2 damaged bullet fragments, but 2 bullet fragments found in the front seat of a limousine?
Yes, I did.
Your panel conducted a comparison microscope examination of these 2 fragments?
Yes, we did.
And the findings?
Findings were that each of the fragments were fired through the rifle, or the Oswald rifle.
Verdict. We, the jury, find the defendant Lee Harvey Oswald guilty of the offense charged in 1 of the indictment.